very good day to our BCR lecturer, Ms. Ching Yi. Today, our group of Mr. and Mrs. is going to present our research topic of the impact of violent content in cartoons towards the behavior of young children in Malaysia. Before we begin, let me introduce my group members, which consists of Nanyoung, Japhia, Sharirra, Peng Soon, Ching Yi, and myself. So let's go on to the introduction. Alright, before we begin, let's just define the key terms that we're going to be using a lot later in the presentation, which is violence, cartoons, and violence in cartoons. Cartoons is defined as a sequence of sketches that employ animation skills to move them in a consequent manner. Alright, and lastly, according to the Entertainment Software Rating Board, ESRB, cartoon violence is defined as violent actions involving cartoon-like situations and characters. It might also involve a certain character being hurt, but they don't show any reaction towards that physical abuse.
There is some reason for objection to violent content. The first reason is that the children are unable to discern the fantasy and the reality because of the it is enhanced by computer generated special effect. So the line between the reality and the fantasy is a bit blurred these days.
Okay, so we start with the characteristics of violent content. Children's TV programs were more violent than adult programs, and it's found that children's TV programs are showing up to 30 violent acts per hour. So cartoons such as Tom and Jerry, Popeye the Sailor has been arguably classified as violent among researchers these days.
The second issue is that the complication of the violent video games and violent media. Children and teenagers, the largest users of video games, and even when they're watching violent media contents, actually the children become the character by imitating the violence from the video games and the violent media contents. And also children's brain are still developing, so it is more effective to be influenced.
So, this part will be prevalence of violent cartoons. According to Hard Needle, 96% of TV sets in America home are used on an average of 6 hours and 80 minutes per day. 80% of a primetime program were either cartoons or movies. So, frequency of violence per episode was 5 per play or 8 per hour.
Okay, so for the research objective, this research intends to study the hours children spend on cartoon viewing. So violent content violence is a vital part in the cartoon content. So, but most of the children still spending their time to watch the television. So the hours that children spend in watching cartoons might be affect their behavior due to the violent content. So for the next is this research also investigate the awareness of children towards violent content in cartoons. So children's mind is like a sponge. It absorbs everything around their environment. So by watching cartoons, they are constantly bombarded with the image of the violence. So, but the children, they really not really realize the violent content might be harmful to them. So lastly, our research is going to determine the impact of those violent cartoons towards the children's aggressive tendencies. So this is to identify the root of aggression and actions. Is directly linked to their diet and their behavior to the violent contents in cartoons.
So now we move on to the literature review. First off, the researchers Zimmerman and Christakis, they conducted a research entitled Children's TV Viewing and Cognitive Outcomes in the US. So what they found is children watch an average of 2.2 hours per day before the age of 3, and at ages 3 to 5, the daily average was 3.3 hours.
So according to Messner in 1996, children nowadays are getting more aggressive and violent as they are exposed to many television programs which contain violence.
There are another researchers who are talking about the relationship between the media exposure and children's aggressive behavior. According to Meyers, exposure to violent media leads to increased aggressive thoughts and behaviors in both younger and older children. But it is more effective to influence the younger children because they are more young to realize the difference between the beauty and fantasy.
According to Huseman, in 1996, social development third theory, the combination of violent video games and violent television contents are more influential to children than either video games or television alone.
So according to Porter in year 198, so the cartoon violence meant for young children audience tend to involve minor acts of violence. Realistically portrayed that is really shown and graphic acts of violence are seldom televised. So in fact, the frequency of violence in cartoons is higher than in live action dramas or comedies. For the next, according to Nanyoung and Hessa in year 2003, children are more exposed to violence shown in the cartoon program than any other television program during time such as 8 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Other researchers have always investigated the impact of violence in cartoons towards the behavior of young children. However, there is this one researcher, Murray, in 2006. He conducted a research that tried to analyze the effects of violent content towards children, but through their brain activity, by observing their brain activity. So through that research, he discovered 5 components, which is first, that violent content is emotionally stimulating. Second, it produces a reaction from a cognitive network involved in attention, arousal, and salience. Third, violent television viewing heightens the detection of threats and fears around the surroundings. Fourth, it activates the systems related to memory retrieval, but the memory retrieval is only related to the threats that they felt earlier. And lastly, it is also involved in the activation of premotor regions, which means that these are the cognitive skills that are needed to operate machinery such as aeroplanes.
Moving on to the significance of study, this study would bring significance to the Censorship Board of Malaysia because through this study they will be aware of how cartoons actually influence children's behavior, and therefore they could actually filter the violent content, or if necessary to stop the broadcast if the content is too influential on children in a negative way. Second would be children's content producers, where it may raise awareness to the producers of what is violent to children and what is not, and therefore they could decrease the violent content in children's programs in the future. Next would be pediatricians and child psychiatrists, where they could further understand children's behavior in this era where children have easy access to media, to television viewing, and therefore when the problem is identified, then the solution could be easily found.
And there are more significance of the study. Firstly, the broadcast station need to take care of set the appropriate time to add the violent contents to minimize the exposure to children. And educators also need to take care about it because there are more higher chance to meet violent content these days that can influence children's aggressive behavior. So they need to take care about the media contents that can be used in class. And lastly, parents need to care about it also because they are too young to realize and think about the negative effects of violent contents. So when their children are watching violent contents via media content, they need to take care about it.
For this part, we are talking about methodology. the research method. So we will research through the survey method. Several open-ended and closed-ended questions directed to both parent and the child. For the subject will be the children from age 6 to 10 years old living in the Puchong area. And 500 children are needed and 350 boys and 150 girls. What's
Sample. The children are randomly chosen in shopping malls in Puchong. The children between the age of 6 and 10 years live in Puchong area. Data collection. Researchers read out and interpret the question to children and they just jot down the answers. Data analysis. To be calculated and analyzed once data has been completely collected. Okay, for our instrumentation, it will be a survey as said earlier on, where we will have the first part, 7 questions directed to the child, and the second part directed to the parents. So for the first part, we will ask about how many hours do they spend watching television, at what time do they specifically watch television. We also would ask them to list down their top 3 cartoons, and also how would they feel when they watch the cartoons and their reaction towards it, and how the cartoon would influence them. For the next 4 questions, which is directed to the parent, we'll ask them about their supervision over the children's television viewing and about their supervision over the children's behavior after television viewing. And this will be done through interviews. This concludes the end of our proposal presentation, where we would like to study the impact of violent content and how it influences the children's behavior, and if so, would the children behave aggressively? Would the children perform corrective behavior towards the violent content, and so on. So with this, I end the presentation. Thank you.